Hey y'all,
What's going on, everyone?
I'm Jay,
And I'm Chris the Bird Nerd,
and
and
we
we are
are the
the Bird
Bird
Brains.
Brains. And I
I
I
do
don't know
have
if she'll,
my
if
mug.
I
Cheers.
I have a glass of wine. Cheers! I'm celebrating the new Pope. We got a new Pope today. I'm Catholic,
Yeah,
so
it's awesome, man.
we got
Congratulations.
we got a new Pope,
I've
American Pope for the first time
I've
ever.
I've been so wrapped up in work stuff today. I haven't even checked anything online, so that was new news to me. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
and we got Candy, who may or may not be on
Yeah.
camera. I don't know because it zooms us in some from what we
Oh,
see when we're
sorry.
recording,
I just scared her. You want to come
but.
closer? Hi. Hi.
Golly,
You
she's
saying
looking
hi?
so much better. Oh, she's waving. Oh,
You
that.
saying hi?
All right, you want to hear something cool? So, and Chris, I know you're going through this with Candy. So, when you adopt a parrot who's not, you didn't get from a baby, so you didn't teach them all the stuff, you
Right.
find out, like I called it, we talked about this maybe a year ago or so, like little Easter eggs that you get from birds. And you're like, oh,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know you did this. Like Einstein will play soccer with like a little toy soccer ball. And I didn't know he did it. It's not like he can tell you. And then
Right.
one of my kids rolled a soccer ball past him and he started playing soccer with my kid. And it was like,
Nice.
but I've had Einstein, in November will be 3 years. I thought I had seen all the Easter eggs. But every once in a while, when I'm going to do carpool with my kids, I'll just bring them with me and like walk around with him on my shoulder and let people be like, "Oh, parrot!"
Uh-huh.
And he did the wolf whistle. He did the
Oh,
real
nice.
distinct and clear, and he did it twice. And I've never heard him do it before, but somebody saw him and like whistled at him, and he hit the. I was like, oh, so lesson learned by me. They've always got more than you think.
You like that? She just ate a little banana. So today she got a new play stand. So since it's warmed up this last month, she's been spending most every day outside with us when we're out there, and she's
Mhm.
loving the sun. And we just have uh, this little cheap wooden stand that I had got when we first got her, and we upgraded, got her a new stand, built it today when I got home from work and put her out on it. She loved it. And she said a new word today, which I hadn't heard her say. And so her play stand, it's got like three different levels, and she's up on the very top level, super excited. She's like flapping her wings, talking. And I gave her a piece of banana, and she's eating it. She's like, lollipop, lollipop.
Aim,
She says
aim the
lollipop. So
camera, aim the camera at her for a second. Yeah, so because I'm worried we're not going to get her. There she is. Oh,
hi,
there's my little
there's my
god
good
bird.
girl. There's my good girl. She's letting her. I don't know how well you guys can see, but we're getting feathers back in.
Yeah.
And she's getting some of the yellow ones back in. It's a little bit patchy, so I'm trying to give her baths every day, keep her entertained, and she has considerably reduced the amount of feather shredding that she's done. So she is going through a molt right now. So she's molting her tail feathers. She's got lots of pin feathers up on the head, and then obviously her chest is getting some new feathers in. So we're hoping that don't poop on my arm. I got my arm right under her butt. We're hoping that she lets them grow back in so people can really see how beautiful she is. But
She's
she's going off one.
already
Hi, hi.
so, I mean, when I got her, man, she was so much more like raggled
Yeah,
than she is there. She looks great.
she loves to do kisses, huh? Can you do a
Shh,
kiss?
get her to wave hi again.
Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Come on, say
See,
hi.
people don't realize they
Say
know they're on
hi.
camera. She understands she's
You
on
say hi.
camera. And they're not
You
as
say hi.
performative. It's so frustrating. They don't
Here,
do
wait.
what you want.
Oh, you can do it. You can do it. Here, let's try this. Let's see here. I've got a little treat here for.
Mhm.
Let me say hi. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Oh, come on. There you go. Come on. There you go.
Hi.
But
Good
hopefully,
bird.
you guys saw that. She didn't lift her foot up too high, but
Yeah,
she knows
before
she's
she held it up
you're
for
on
a
camera,
while.
huh?
Yeah, they get
Yeah,
camera shy.
she'll hold it up, and she'll even wave the toes, and she'll also do that if she wants some head scratches. So, like if I
Oh,
if I give her a good head scratch.
she
And
mimics
then,
your head scratch thing.
yes. And so if I take it away and she wants more, she'll put her foot up to her head. You're not going to do it now, are you? You
That's
going to do
awesome.
it?
So we thought it's breeding season. We're what, a fifth of the way into breeding season now for both of us, and we thought we'd just do a video of just a quick refresher on not a specific species or anything, just in general how to breed finches.
The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Birdbrains, Birdbrains. The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. The Birdbrains Podcast with Chris and Jay. Birdbrains,
So
Birdbrains.
we're sponsored by New Zealand. They are an incredible online pet supply company. Right now, pretty bird specific. Use
Yeah.
code BirdBrains, get 10% off, and stick around at the end of this video. And we're going to talk about some of the awesome stuff that they have that you can get from New Zealand, which is truly becoming a one-stop shop for everything bird. Today, we are going to talk about breeding finches, and I guess we should start with the very basics, Chris. So, just if you didn't know this, sorry if I'm breaking your heart, but to breed finches, you need a male
You did a boy and a girl.
and a female, right? You have to. So, what we would call in the biz a true pair. So,
Yes.
you need a male and a female of breeding age that are ideally not related. So breeding age for finches, depending on the species, it varies a little bit, but typically between or older than 1 year and younger than 4 years old,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Most of your finch species, I would say 12 months is a great breeding
Mhm.
age, with a couple exceptions of like zebra finches and society finches. They can tolerate a little bit younger, but I still would recommend 12 months or older to breed and successfully have first, second, third clutches each year. And it does help their bodies fully mature, and before they're laying eggs or raising chicks, things like that. It really does help. So 12 months or older, make sure you got a boy and girl.
And the reason, conversely, you don't want to be too old is so finches are small compared to a lot of animals, they're relatively fragile, and it is a big taxing thing. A finch egg, I don't have one handy, but they're only, like this big. But
Teeny
if you
tiny.
think about that, the whole finch is smaller than my fist. That's a lot of work. And then if you think about that, like we talked about in the previous episode, finch chicks are altricial. They don't come out like a baby duck or a chicken ready to fend for themselves. So mom and dad have to sit them for 2 weeks, basically 13 days, 2 weeks. Then they have to feed them in the nest
Yeah.
constantly, and in the beginning, every couple hours for 2 or 3 more weeks, and then they have to feed them once they fledge for another 2 or 3 more weeks. That is a huge taxing thing for such a small animal.
Absolutely.
The energy demand, the caloric demand. I mean, it's nuts to think about,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's like they are already calorie and energy wise like a race car engine. They need really high octane fuel. They need a lot of gas. They don't get good gas mileage. Then you factor in that they've got to feed. I've had a clutch of nine zebra finch chicks. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
those parents have to feed themselves and nine babies. That's a big deal. So you want a bird that's young enough and in really good health to be able to do that. Imagine if you were 50 and all of a sudden you had septuplets, right? That
Right.
it would kill you. I'm
Yeah.
34, I got three kids, it almost kills me.
Yeah, and one thing to take into consideration too, Jay, is most of your finches will lay consecutive clutches in a row. So as soon as those chicks of their first clutch are fully feathered and they fledge the nest box, mom and dad are already working on the second clutch while they're weaning the first chicks, right? And so there's no break. There's no like, oh, I'm going to wait 3 weeks and rest. It is, one after another consistently. And, depending on the species, they'll go year round consistently. And you truly have to like put pauses in there for them, taking nest boxes away, separating genders, things like that. So take that into consideration, right? The amount of time and, like you said, the caloric energy and whatnot that it takes for those birds to successfully raise those chicks. So make sure you're supplying them with ample nutrients to have 2 to 3 clutches in their breeding season. And you think of it, that's a 120-day sprint of either laying eggs, sitting on eggs, raising chicks, weaning chicks, and then overlapping all of that in between for 4 to 6 months, depending on their breeding season. So it is a big intake for the
Right.
birds.
The human equivalent would be like having, usually at the very least, like triplets. And then when those triplets are like 2 months old, getting pregnant again.
Yeah, yeah,
And then when those triplets are 2 months old, getting pregnant again.
getting
Right.
pregnant again.
Right. Imagine what that would do. So, all right, so you've got your pair, they're the right age, they're the right sex, and we've done species specific stuff. We've done other videos on sexing birds and how to deal with that. So we're not going to get too in depth in any one thing. Both Chris and I have on our channels a playlist with all the previous episodes. So go
Yeah,
back, do your homework, as we haven't said in a while, but we always say, and find those if you need. If you're like, well, I want to know how to breed zebra finches, guess what? We got an episode for that.
yeah,
Um, and then you want to get them into what's called breeding condition. And that means feather, that means health, that means weight, that means, nutrition, all the things. You want a bird, just like if you're an Olympic athlete, you want to be in your best condition going into the start of the Olympic Games.
right.
Like we already talked about, there's this huge demand. So you want to have birds that are in peak physical shape to go into the breeding season, which means that I typically put my nest boxes in March. I'm starting that process in January
Yeah.
to get them there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Your wintertime, you're molting, right? And so and that is a big piece of like lighting aspect and diet. January, exactly. I'm right there with you, Jay. That's when you're starting to ramp up, right? You're adding more to the food supplementation. You're increasing light. You're providing opportunities for birds to bathe and whatnot. And usually January to late February is when pairs are selecting each other if they haven't already bonded and mated, and so that's a good opportunity, for me because I separate my genders, but they can still see each other through the wires. So it's a good opportunity for me to sit down, observe the birds. All of my birds are banded, so I see which ones are singing to each other and responding, and then I take note of those color bands, and I'll either put them together in the big flight or I'll take them and put them in an individual breeding cage. Hey, this is about finches, not macaws. Okay. Um, so yeah, super important. And Jay, I think that piece right there is critical to the success of breeding any bird, really. And we get comments all the time of like, hey, like I threw a nest box in there and my birds aren't breeding. And if it's not a zebra finch or a society finch, there's a good chance that they may not be ready to breed. They could be in the middle of a molt, or they could be starting their molt, or it takes some time for them to get used to the new partner that you paired them with, right? There's a lot of different dynamics, and so the off season is so important for that, so that when you are ramping them up in the springtime, it's like they're itching to go. And I know, Jay, you experienced that, right? I mean, you didn't put your nest boxes in as soon as you have in previous years, and your birds were like, "What the heck is going on?" Like they're dropping eggs on the ground, like
Well,
like they
so
were itching to go. And so,
it screwed me up. So I haven't
yeah,
told you this yet. I'm going to tell you this on camera. So last year I had a great Gouldian year. I fledged something like 30 Gouldians from
hmm
from like 4 pairs. So I got everybody in. I keep them on this cycle. I am thinking the whole year about. We've talked about it in other episodes, but the racetrack kind of is how I think about it. I'm in turn one. I'm already thinking about turn two, turn three, and turn four. So at the end of last breeding season, I'm already thinking about, all right, we got to get them out of breeding condition, through a molt, and back into breeding condition. Well, my Gouldians in particular, I've noticed the last 2 weeks, all of a sudden, all my Gouldians, which they kind of feed off each other hormonally and everything,
Yeah.
all my Gouldians are molting again. They molted 3 months
Oh
ago.
no.
They all have pin feathers right now. So I got them into breeding condition. They were already. I didn't activate it at the right time, and it's thrown them off. So not all
Yeah.
species are that sensitive. Like you said, zebra finches and society finches will breed in the middle of winter in a shoebox upside down with the lights off. But Gouldians, if you're not
Yeah.
it's
Gouldians and canaries, I would say, are the most sensitive to things like that.
right, and my canaries too. So my canaries have laid a clutch each, both of my hens, all infertile.
Dang.
So and one of them's on clutch two now, so I'm fingers crossed. But typically with my canaries, it's also pretty temperature related, right? So they naturally would breed a little earlier because they're a
Yeah.
little more cold tolerant and just they're in a different climate. So I typically in my breeding season I breed from March to October, which in the northern hemisphere, March is spring, October is fall.
Right.
Um, so I'm breeding through the summer. So typically I'll only have canary success their first clutch, then I'll have a clutch or two of duds, and then I'll let them do a fourth clutch because they're a little bigger and tougher. I typically only get successful chicks out of clutch one and clutch three or four. Clutch two almost never, which like I said, this year I kind of started with clutch two
Right.
goose, right? So
Dang. That's
yeah,
unfortunate, man.
this whole thing's been a mess. I still might have to move. We're so. If you're not familiar, the reason this is all happening to me is we're trying to sell our house, and one of the reasons is we've identified a new house that has a much bigger spot for a much bigger aviary. So I was hoping that we put our house on the market in January. I was hoping that it would be sold and we'd be moved, the new aviary would be built by the time breeding season started. Joke's on me. Here we are in May in my house. So I finally said, you know what? I'm going to just put the nest boxes in, let God decide how this is going to go. And so far, it's been painful. But
Yeah.
I am hoping in the next, I do have some. So, like, I've got shaft tails on eggs, zebra finches on eggs, doves on eggs, cockatiels on eggs, budgies on eggs, and borks on
Nice.
eggs. So,
Yeah.
and my masked grass finches have
Ooh,
one of my pairs at least I saw has made a nest, and so have
that's
my parrot
awesome.
finches, and
That's
so have
awesome.
my gold breast waxbills.
Wow.
So I'm hoping I still get a decent year. I already know it's not going to be as good as last year because
Yeah.
I threw away a fifth of it basically,
Yeah.
but we'll see. All right, so we've got you've got a true pair. They're in breeding condition. Then what?
Then it comes to nest boxes, right? What are they going to breed in? And I would say there's three styles of nesting boxes that I would recommend, and it's all species specific. And there's tons of different variations of these nests, but I think just in general, majority of your finches, your Australian finches, will breed in a typical square nest box that you can get off New Zealand. They've got some great nest box options that you guys can go to and get. Throw some nesting material in there, and we can highlight different types of nesting material in a minute. But throw some nesting material out there. A good majority of your Australian species will readily breed in the nest boxes, which are easy. The next one are grass baskets, and I say grass baskets because there are wicker baskets out there, but I do not recommend those ones. The birds will get their toes stuck in them all the time. If there's a way that they can injure themselves, they will find it. And so the grass baskets are similar, but they're a little bit more light and flimsy. So that the birds, even if the birds' toes get stuck in there, more times than not, they can wiggle themselves out, and they're not trapped in
They're
injuring
like
themselves.
they're like more gourd shaped as
Yeah,
opposed
and
to
they're
like
kind
a
of,
picnic
exactly
basket with a cover.
right.
They're more of like a like a tent with an opening
Yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to like a basket with a cover.
Right. And a lot of your African species will readily nest in those ones, typically with a lot of foliage around. So you'll stuff those into fake plants or real bushes, etc. And a lot of your African species will take to that very quickly. And then the others are your open nest pans. So your canaries, goldfinches, doves, all those will, oh, careful, you scared me. Um, will nest in those open pan nest boxes, and so those are probably your three like high level. If you've got a finch species from Australia, a box is probably great. If you got a species from Africa, the grass baskets are great. If you got canaries or doves, the half open nest pans are great. Uh, Place those
Mm.
strategically throughout your cage or aviary, typically high corners or secluded into bushes, etc. The birds will take to it super quick, and if they're ready, like Jay said, you'll have eggs within like 2 days of putting them in there.
Yeah, and one thing we need to talk about nesting material here too, but one thing I wanted to add, if you notice, one of the things we haven't mentioned is like the all natural approach of like letting them find a spot like a wild bird would find and building their own nest. Very occasionally, I will let certain species that are really good at that, like spice finches, I'll let them do that. But as a general rule, most of my species I try to dissuade from doing that,
Yeah,
and it is completely because that it's very high risk for the babies. So
yeah,
it they just tend to not be as well made. The birds are
yep.
just not as good at it as
Eggs will fall through. Chicks will fall out of the nest easily. I have two species, Jay, and your African species. There's a high chance that they'll build their own nest. So I mean, you kind of got
It's
to
a
pick your
case
battle,
by
right?
case. It's a case by
Exactly.
case. Yeah.
My starfinches, doesn't matter how many nesting options I give to them. If I have any greenery anywhere in my aviary, which I do, they will build their own nest in it every time. Even if I have 10 nests available to them, my stars love to build their own nest. But the problem is, Jay, they're not good nest builders. So I have to be super strategic on where I put my nest boxes, and then I cover those nest boxes with fake plants so they feel like they're in the bushes, and then they'll take to the nest boxes. I don't know if it's just unique to the stars that I have now, but that's always been something. And my orange cheek waxbills, they have built their own, but they actually have done a great job, and it's really cool. They've got a false entrance and a true entrance, which is really cool. They actually got chicks, dude. I got baby orange cheek waxbills right now. It's awesome. I'm
You
really
you
excited.
all right? I'm mad at you because that is a test. That is a
I know.
test,
I'm
sir.
sorry, man. Well, it's been
We've
one of
both been
those like
so busy. We've been so
I've
busy.
heard peeps, and I'm like, hey, is that from these guys? Is it from this?
Are they? They're
And
in that side cage.
yeah, they're in like a side cage that I built, and I have a pair of stars in there with them.
Mhm. Yeah, but the
And so I
stars
was
aren't
like, hey,
gonna.
is it my? Yeah, I was like, is it my star babies? I'm like, no, it can't be. Yeah, and this morning they were. And I've just been giving them a handful of mealworms with egg food. That is really all I've been doing. And yeah, hearing the peeps are getting louder, so I am super super excited. So that was pretty cool.
Well, if as the guy that got you the orange cheeks, I am gonna take some of the
Yeah,
credit here.
thank you to Papa J. I've
No,
got
it's
a
funny,
macaw stash.
so I put in my female redheaded Amadina that you bred and gave to me to match the male you gave to me. And I was looking at my aviary today and I was like, man, like we got a lot of Utah birds now. And then I was like, man, Chris is awesome. And then I thought about it, I was like, Chris has a lot of Alabama birds
I
too.
do
Like
have a lot of Alabama birds, yes.
this
Oh,
is
the
just
the
cool.
doves, the spice finches, the orange cheek waxbills. So it's been good.
Have you put
Yeah.
in
So
your red doves yet?
yes, there. I've got two that are already laying eggs.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't
So
my pair's done with quarantine, but I haven't decided if I'm going to put them in the aviary or in just a flight cage yet. And I've had a busy week, so that tomorrow, one of the things I'm going to figure out is where they're ending up. But my other doves
yeah,
are all on eggs.
I did put all four of them together in the aviary with one of my. I had an extra male normal
From that I bred,
diamond
yeah.
dove that you bred from you, and so he's in there with them. I need to put some more nest pans out there because they're one of the females is laying in the food dish and trying to build her two stick nest in there.
Yeah,
So
speaking of birds that I will not allow to build their own nests, doves, because doves
yeah, it's
will,
terrible.
Chris is right. They'll put a stick here, a stick there, like one piece of yarn, and call it a nest, and just the eggs just roll
Uh-huh.
off, you know? All right,
Yeah,
so nesting material. So, and we've done episodes on this and video. Chris and I both have videos on this, but the main things I want to touch on here is you don't want things that hold water for a long time.
yeah,
So, like strips of newspaper, things like that are not great. Things are going to grow mold, right? So, good things are burlap, coconut fiber is a really good one.
yeah.
Um,
I love
uh,
coconut fiber. That's my
yeah,
favorite.
I'll use like crinkle cardstock that things get shipped
Uh-huh.
in. I like to give them feathers, both feathers I collect from the cage and like I'll buy like arts and crafts Amazon feathers and give those to
Yeah,
them. Um, I like hay, like
yeah,
hay grass, and then palm frond strips are good. I have a lot of access to that. There's not much of that in Utah.
no.
Um,
I
and
wished I
then
had some access to that.
there are some you can buy some those little like white stringlet pieces that come in the pre dispenser. You also want to be really careful to avoid things that can get wrapped around toes, fingers,
Yeah.
legs.
Cot Cotton, yarn, I would say stay as far away from that as you can.
Mm,
Because more times than not, it will get caught around their toes, and it's usually too late before you see it, and
yeah, but
the
the
toes are not
best case scenario there is
saved.
a like a broken toe, and the worst case scenario is a very dead bird. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um, so that and then so yeah, provide a lot of that. Once they start laying, you can kind of pull back on that. And then, all right, so we've done everything there. Now we're to laying. So you've got birds and they're laying. There are this is an interesting part of it. So experienced birds will do what I'm about to describe. Inexperienced birds may not. And so I'll
yeah,
explain. So experienced hens will lay, let's say they're going to lay a clutch of 5 eggs, which 4 to 6 eggs is fairly typical. Like I said, I've had a zebra finch that did 9. I have a lot of birds that will only do 2. Like a lot of your red-billed firefinches, they'll do 2 typically, or
yeah.
3 and only 2 will hatch.
Hmm.
But the and doves will only do 2, etc. But 4 to 6. So experienced hens will, and they lay typically one a day. Experienced hens will lay one, two, three, and then start sitting.
Yeah,
That means that the chicks will all hatch within a couple days of each other, which is important.
yeah,
Inexperienced hens, and it takes them sometimes a year to figure this out,
yep,
will lay one and start sitting, and then lay two, and then lay three. And what that means is, remember the for most finches, the time in the egg, the egg gestation period is only 13 days. So if they're going to lay 6 eggs and start sitting on day one, the first egg will be halfway to hatching before the sixth egg is laid. So
right.
by and they grow exponentially fast. They go from, tiny, the size of a dime, to ready to fledge in a couple of weeks. So by the time number 6 hatches, number 1 is already what, 5 times the size?
Yeah, I was gonna say the first week of the life of the chick, each day they almost double in size.
Hmm.
So you have a chick that hatches, and then even just 3 days later, the next chick hatches. The first chick is three times bigger than that one. And so when you think of it in the wild, you've got four chicks in there. Three of them are two to three times bigger than that last one, that fourth one that hatches. It's already at a huge disadvantage. It's either going to get sat on and trampled, or the others are going to outbeg it for food, unless you have an experienced parents that are feeding abundantly and knowing which mouths are being fed and which ones aren't, and that comes with experience with the birds. Usually, the first I expect like my young inexperienced pairs, I expect 50% of my chicks to make it to fledging. Just due to what you said, Jay. They don't lay all the eggs and then sit on them. So your last chicks are hatching 2 to 5 days behind the first ones, right? And it automatically just really puts them in a disadvantage. And then the parents aren't as seasoned or knowledgeable on feeding all of the chicks, making sure that they all get food. Some of your experienced birds, when they lay huge clutches, like I've had clutches of, like you said, Jay, 8, 9 zebra finches, and the youngest ones, they still get fed, and the parents still make sure that that they're keeping them
Taken
alive and
care
keeping
of.
them
Yeah.
fed and taken care of. It's pretty crazy. So
Yeah. And so I try to remind people this all the time because I get it's always sad and it's hard for me to like hug people through the Instagram app, right? But I get, man, I'm so discouraged. My hen laid, they both set, everything was going great. The chicks hatched, and then they all just died.
yeah,
And what did I do wrong? And often the answer is nothing.
right,
They just don't. They've got to learn, and there's no way. Like you can't show your zebrafinch this episode and explain to the zebrafinch what it messed up on.
yeah,
Right. So they've got to just figure it out. But I always remind people, I need to go back. I quote this all the time. I need to go back and find it. In the wild, the percentage of chicks that make it from hatch to sexually mature, which is only like 6 months, is 5%. So for
yeah,
every 100 chicks that are hatched, not even eggs laid, but hatch, 95 will die. So what Chris just said, he expects his early breeders to only get to 50% in the first year when they're figuring it all out. That is still a 10x improvement from the wild.
right, right,
So your your responsibility, in my mind, my responsibility as a breeder is to do everything right on my end, right? So all the things we already talked about, abundant food, a safe environment, free from, predators. I have an outdoor aviary. It's my job to keep rats and snakes and anything that
right.
wants to eat, ants that wants to eat a baby chick away. Other misbehaving birds, right? Whatever. There is some element of this that is up to the finches, and they are not going to be perfect. And even my super experienced hens, they're laying a lot of clutches. You're going to have birth defects, you're going to have injury, just stuff happens. Life is like that. So don't,
Yeah,
if you have one clutch, the chicks don't get fed right and they all die, that doesn't mean give up. That doesn't mean
right,
you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean you should feel guilty. That means try again and let them learn.
right. And I'll usually give each pair at least 2 chances. And if by after that second chance I didn't see any improvement, then I'll see if I can make a change. Whether that change is, oh, are you ready for bed? She's getting grumpy. Whether that change is, a different pairing with a more experienced bird, or a different environment, different nest box, right? There's things um, that you can do to try to help them be more successful. But more times than not, Jay, if you just let them have a couple more chances, they get better every time.
Right. All right. So now we're to the growth phase, right? So again, to get birds in a breeding condition, to get them to breed, and then to get them to successfully raise chicks, abundant food, abundant water. You don't want them to ever feel like they're running out of those things because the first thing they'll do, it's their survival instinct. Like I just talked about, it's a 5% success rate to get to adulthood. So humans are kind of the opposite of this. We'll all give our lives for our kids. They're the reverse. Their brain is wired that, oh, there's a threat here. It is
Yeah,
easier for me to make more chicks than it is for that chick to survive. So they'll just give up on chicks like that.
yeah,
It's just how they work. It's not a malicious or mean thing. It's just the way
right,
nature has equipped them. So you don't ever want to cause them to be concerned about those things. But so you do all that. approximately 21 days after hatching, you'll see fledging. And fledging is when the baby birds fly out of the nest for the first time. Um, that tends to be a fairly perilous thing, uh, especially from a high nest box. It can be dangerous, but as a general rule, most birds I find like when I get them to fledging, I count that bird like that's where I mark the win because generally when
Yeah,
birds get to
right.
fledging, you're good.
Yeah. And um, if you do have African species, do be careful because many times in captivity, their chicks tend to fledge earlier than they should. So they still have a lot of like down feathers, like the really fluffy ones that stick out. And it takes them 2 to 3 days before they're flying up to the perches. So just be aware of that, that if you see a chick on the ground, that's okay. A fully feathered chick on the ground, that's okay. Let them be. The parents will still take care of them. Just make sure that the ground environment is safe for them, like you said, Jay, that they're safe from predators or other birds that may injure them or attack them. But eventually, they'll get their wings
Water
underneath them,
bowls.
and yeah, they'll fly up and do a good job. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I don't know. I think
I had canary chicks that fledged like 2 weeks early. Like they fledged at
oh
like a
yeah,
week,
uh-huh,
and it was in the parrot flight. I just let them live in the corner. Parents sat with them at night, fled, took
yep,
care of them, and then eventually they start flying around. I have sometimes if a chick fledges too early, and I think I can, depending on the species, but like a zebra finch or something or a Gouldian that aren't necessarily as afraid of me, I'll sometimes just put the chick back in the nest, and worst
uh-huh,
case,
yeah,
it'll just refledge again, right?
yep, same. And a lot of your Australian species, you can do that and the parents are totally fine with it. Just plop them back in, and chicks will go and hide. Sometimes chicks will fledge early because they have older siblings that fledge, and it
Yeah, that's
draws
a
them
big.
out as well. And so, yeah, I think just um, I just had some zebra finches fledge this week, Jay, and they look pretty sweet. They've got a lot of orange on them, so I'm really excited for them to mature out. But two of the chicks, the two youngest, they fledged a little bit early, so they've spent about 4 days now on the ground. The other three are up and flying around in the perches, and they're about ready to venture on up. They're getting to the point when I walk in to feed them, they're flying up to the top, and they're getting their wings out there. You see some feet coming in. She's hi,
She's ready to go to bed. All right, and then
yeah,
so typically 21 days to fledging, and then typically another 3 to 4 weeks till they're what's called weaned. So even after they fledge, usually dad, by this point, mom is going to go back into the nest and start laying again.
yes,
Dad is going to do the majority of the feeding. And now this is species dependent and everything, but dad's going to do the majority of the feeding. And then um, I have adapted my thinking on this over the past few years. I used to say once you see them eating food and they're, weaned, pull them from the parents. I leave them a little longer than that now. I try to tend to wait till birds start to color up now, which means
yeah,
when they fledge, they'll have like a still have like baby coloring typically,
yeah,
for lack of a better term. I wait till I start to see adult coloring coming in, especially shaft tails and Gouldians.
yes,
Before I pull them because I've had a couple of times where I really thought the bird was fledged. I really thought they were
mm-hmm,
independent. And then once they were away from mom and dad, they just didn't
yeah.
thrive.
Zebra finches, society finches, and canaries tend to wean pretty darn quick. Your other species, shafttails, take a while, which is really surprising to me. They take a little bit longer than your average finch, the Gouldian finches as well. I heard an old breeder once say once he saw the chicks drinking water on their own, he considered them weaned. And I have put that into play. I mean, there's many times I've got big waiting lists for the birds, right? And I have small windows to ship. And so once I see the birds drinking water on their own, usually that's a sign that they are weaned enough from the parents. But I agree, Jay. Try to give them as much time as you possibly can just to make sure that they are good, that they're fully weaned. Each species varies a little bit on how quickly they do wean, and so just I'd rather be safe than sorry. So
Yeah, and if you're not sure, you can leave them. like eventually dad will make it real clear,
Yeah.
or mom, the
Or
parents will make
mom.
it real clear that it's time. Like I once watched one of my male zebra finches grab one of his sons by the wing and fling him across the aviary. That's on me, right?
That's the
I
sign of get
yeah,
lost, buddy.
right. Like I fudged up, So um, but no harm, no foul there. Nobody really got hurt. That was a little too long. But if when in doubt, let them cook a little longer. And
Yeah.
I think I'll end the instructional portion of this episode with that thought. And I did a whole video, like a whole YouTube video just on this on my channel. The best advice I ever got about bird keeping is go slow.
Yeah.
Just don't rush anything. You
Yep.
don't need to rush anything. The birds will do their thing. The best thing you can do is let the birds do their thing. You're
Yeah.
not in a hurry. There's no fire.
And and I would say that, Jay, this is a perfect thing to end on. Go slow for the whole breeding process. We get impatient. We don't see eggs in the nest soon enough. We don't see, if it's canaries, we don't see the male feeding the hen soon enough. The chicks don't fledge soon enough. The eggs don't hatch soon enough. Um, Many times we are the reasons why, most times, we're the reason why our birds are not successful breeding. Either we're checking in on them too much, we're trying to see the progress of the chicks, or we're messing with the pairs because they haven't laid eggs as soon as we want them to. Have patience, go slow. If you let them do it on their time, you're going to be 9, 10 times more successful in the long run with those pairs because they're doing it their way in their time frame than it would be you trying to rush it and push uh, you know them to breed and have them be successful. So usually if you're more hands off, you give them all the resources, all the tools, everything that they need to be successful, and let them go and do their thing and go to town. They're going to do it. Like, they're capable and great birds, great parents. They're going to be successful raising the chicks. So go slow. I like that, Jay, and you'll be more successful.
Yeah, yeah. That extra 4 or 5 days of patience will go a long
Yeah,
way.
right.
All right, let's talk about New Zealand a little bit more.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
so you go to New Zealand's website, which will be linked somewhere around here. This is going to be on Chris's channel, so he's got to do it. But and then you go to the Perchville section. Now, look, so New Zealand doesn't give us money, and but they do give us stuff like this to try out and talk to y'all about. And they give us seed, and they help support this channel. So we appreciate them for that. But um, their website, I find, and we get complaints about the website. We don't control the website. We have no control over it. I think it's a cool website. The one thing
Yeah,
I don't like about it is it's a little bit hard to get to the actual finding stuff to buy part.
right.
So you go to New Zealand's website and then you want to visit the Perchville, which you have to kind of scroll down a little bit. So once you get to the Perchville, there's like a product catalog page. You can click on it and it gets much easier.
Yeah,
So the products we have today, they're actually both preview products, which they have other brands too. But
yes.
the first one I was going to highlight is just Cuttlebone, um, and not
Which is
anything
perfect for the breeding topic.
right. Not this isn't anything fancy or crazy. I think these are like $3 on the website, if even that. And it is literally the uh, I guess the calcium deposit thing from a cuttlefish called the cuttlebone. And what birds use this for? These ones come with a little pre-cage hook deal. What birds use this for is a source of calcium.
Yep.
So if you're laying a lot of eggs, like we just talked about, you're going to go through that three septuplets in a row, and you're a tiny little bird that's laying big eggs proportionally. Guess what you need a lot
Yeah.
of?
Yeah. And you need it year round. So not just when they're laying eggs. This is a product that you should always have available to your birds, whether they're breeding or not. So go to New Zealand. They have lots in stock. They have different options. You can get multiple Cuttlebones or just a single one, depending on how many birds you have. I usually try to have several different Cuttlebone options for my birds throughout, and New Zealand's a great place to get that quickly, get it shipped to your house as fast as you can with the 10% Bird Brains code. So
Yeah, in just to give you an idea, in my aviary, I have five cuttle bones. My big aviary that has like 60 some birds in it, I have five cuttle bones at any time. And if one of them gets worn out, I replace it.
yeah.
So I mean, I'm buying cuttle bone in bulk.
And they
If
will have like the backs of those Cuttlebones are a little bit hard. My birds, the
Mhm.
soft part that they eat, they'll like they'll pick that sucker clean, and it'll just be the hard shell. Once it's the hard shell, I'll throw it. Yeah, that part's the soft part. That part's the
This
hard
is the hard
shell.
shell. I
And they'll
toss
still
the
eat
hard.
some of the larger birds will eat that, but I usually will toss the hard shell, just like you said, Jay, once they've eaten the inside.
Yeah, and if you're there are some people who don't like the cuttle bone thing. I don't really know if the cuttle bones are being caught and then these are being harvested or not. I don't know if they're getting like made into calamari and these are getting harvested too. I really don't know.
I'm
But I
not
know
sure.
there are some people that are uncomfortable with that. So there are other non-sourced options like that. So they have the Hari mineral blocks and then they're like synthetic cuttle bones that look like a cuttle bone, but they're not. So there are
You
other
got oyster
options.
shells. Yeah, there's other options out there. Chicken eggs, right? If you
Yeah.
Jay and I usually put hard boiled eggs with the shell in our egg food, and that's also a source of calcium. So there's other options out there to pursue. This one I would just say it goes a lot longer. You get a better bang for your buck, I guess per se, with the
Yeah, I
Cuttlebones.
mean, this size cuttlebone would last a pair of zebra finches or a pair of society finches a whole breeding season.
Yeah,
Um, all right, then we got this. And so one thing I like about the preview stuff is they'll label like so this one says physical and mental. So this is just it's just a pretty simple rope ladder with I don't know what kind of wood this is, maybe balsa wood, I don't even know. Um, but it's bird safe. I know that. And so for finches, this could be a perch,
hmm
decoration. For a bird like Candy, this is a chew toy.
yeah,
And then for the in-between birds like a cockatiel, this is the ladder to climb, or a bork or a budgie. This is a ladder to climb and something to chew on, at the same time. So you can help, chewing on this stuff helps keep beaks trimmed and in shape that they're supposed to be. It's something to do. It's mental enrichment because they've got something to work on, right? Or play with or
yep,
mess with instead of just sitting there kind of going crazy. And I think they're cool. I mean, I like having
yeah.
stuff like this in the cage. I just think it looks cool.
I've got one out in my aviary. The finches love it, and I actually put one in Candy's cage several weeks ago, and within a week she had it
It's
all chewed
confetti.
apart and destroyed, and she loved it. And so I actually really like those. I think they
Mhm.
come in handy, and you can use them for any size bird.
Yeah, and all of these are either things that would be included in the Bird Brains Perch Box or an add-on. What the
Yep,
Bird Brains Perch Box is a subscription box like you've seen, in all kinds of retail things. There's one, the Bird Brains one that we have, obviously sponsored us, is Finch specific, but they also have small, medium, large, and XL for your
yeah,
various parrots. So Candy would be an XL. Einstein would probably be a medium or a large, which Einstein, my
yeah,
parrot that we've been talking about, is an eclectus parrot. So he's much bigger than a finch, much smaller than Candy. Um, but yeah, it's an awesome website. They've got a lot of stuff. You know, they've got everything from medication, nutrition, seed, toys, supplies. And Chris and I have talked about this before, but we get asked all the time, "Hey, where do you get this? Where do you get this?" And I used to, people would
yeah,
ask me, "Where do you get this, this, and this?" And I'd have to send them three different links. It's a mess. You're paying three different shipping charges. You go to New
right.
Zealand, and then if you subscribe to the Perch Box, you get an even bigger discount. Plus, you get a
Yes,
cool surprise every month. Then you're able to go to one website, get the majority of what you need, and you get bargain basement pricing. Their pricing is, I have quite honestly said you should raise your prices.
Yeah,
I've
yeah, no,
told the owner that he's too cheap.
no, they've got great prices. The one thing that I do, Jay, with the Bird Brains box that I feel like is a huge cost saving. So when you subscribe to the Perch box, whether it's to ours or to any size, you can put add-ons, right? So you have a couple options of add-ons, which is additional to what's inside the box, and we'll usually add on seed. And that all gets shipped with the Perch box, and you don't get charged additional shipping, which is huge, right? Seed is heavy, it's expensive to ship, and when you bundle those together, it's like an insurance commercial, right? If you bundle, you get it a lot cheaper, and so it's huge to subscribe to that to the Perch box and then add on your seed to come, and they still have the 20-pound options that you can get. You save a lot of money, and it's good high quality seed. I would do that option every time. Even with the two bundled together, you're still paying less overall than you would to ship in any other seed or go to your local grocery store to buy poor quality seed for the same price, if not more. So just kind of one little trick that I've learned there. I think you guys should definitely explore that option. I love it, and it's helped me out a lot.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so check them out. Use code BirdBrains, get 10% off. If you have questions, reach out to us. We're both available on Instagram and Facebook Messengers, the both best place to reach both of us, obviously, in the comments here. Subscribe to Chris's channel, find my channel, subscribe to it too. Please. Chris has a lot more subscribers than me. I need some. Um, and then I think that's all the platforms you're on. I'm
Yeah,
also on Reddit, which I'll check very occasionally. I've given up on TikTok because I think it's about to get deleted. And
yeah.
then I'm on Threads, which sucks. If you reach out to me on Threads, I'll talk to you in 3 months. Um, but we love getting questions. I got 5 or 6 today. I love answering them. Don't think, oh, I only have zebra finches and I'm not interesting. You are. I want to help. Chris
Absolutely.
wants to help. And if you're trying to find me and you can only find Chris, Chris will help you. If you're trying to find Chris and you can only find me, I'll help you get in touch with Chris, right? So
Yep.
if you're looking for a
Absolutely.
bork, which Chris is an excellent, look at my Instagram and see how pretty borks are because most of them are from Utah.
I
But if
just
you're like
had three Lutinos and Rubinos fledged two
yeah,
weeks ago. They're
your
gorgeous.
Rubinos are unbelievable. So it's the prettiest bork I've got. It's the first bird everybody says, "What's that?" So
Yeah.
if you're west of the Rockies and you're looking for birds, Chris is your guy. If you're east of the Mississippi, I'm your guy. If you're somewhere in the middle, we'll arm wrestle you. So
The Bird Brains
um,
Podcast, Chris and Jay.
reach
The
out.
Bird Brains
Don't be a
Podcast,
stranger.
Chris and
We
Jay.
love to
The
help.
Yes,
Bird Brains
please.
And
Podcast,
this is a
Chris
super
and
long
Jay. The
episode, but
Bird
it's been
Brains,
fun.
Bird
So,
Brains.
Yeah, it's been good.
The Bird
how to
Brains
Appreciate you
breed
guys.
Podcast,
Thank you.
Chris
finches.
and Jay. The Bird Brains
All right.
Podcast,
We'll
Chris
catch
and
you on
Jay.
the next
The
one.
Bird Brains
See you
Podcast,
guys.
Chris and
Bye,
Jay.
Candy.
Bird Brains, Bird Brains.